Hey guys, welcome back to Margo Watches Movies. My name is Jake Margo. Um, I'm here today holding this Boba Fett toy. I have my dog right off screen. He's been really chewing on it. It's got a squeaky. But in the spirit of this mutilated and massacred Boba Fett dog toy, we're going to be talking about the first 3 episodes of the season 2 premiere of Disney Plus's Andor, written by Tony Gilroy, the showrunner. This guy's amazing. He's everything that Star Wars needs. I'm not going to say that I'm the biggest Star Wars fan at this point in my life because Disney Star Wars has really turned me off from them. There's just been so much crap. And the sequel trilogy, you just wasted so much potential. I can't get over the fact that you had this much invested in an IP and you couldn't have a roadmap. You couldn't have 3 people with a clear understanding of the direction the story was going to go, and it turned into this weird tug-of-war with a $15 billion IP, and it's just head-scratching stupidity, to be frank. I did like Rogue One. It's really the only thing I've liked out of Disney Star Wars, other than Adam Driver's performance as Kylo Ren. But, as someone who grew up loving and watching the prequels, namely Revenge of the Sith, I think Attack of the Clones personally is unwatchable. The first Phantom Menace is a little better than people say, but it is what it is. But Andor, to me, after some coercion from friends who really, really wanted me to watch it, I did, and I was quite blown away because it has very mature storytelling themes. The episodic format of contained storylines within 3 episodes with overarching themes was really cool. And I just thought that show was the best thing I've ever seen in Star Wars. Maybe it's a hot take, but I like it better than Empire Strikes Back, which is like a childhood nostalgia thing for me. I still love that movie, but Andor is what I want as a young adult. Not so young anymore, but, So after a 3-year hiatus, we're back with 3 brand new episodes. It was a little overwhelming at first. You have so many moving parts in this show. You have a whole chessboard of a vast cast of characters. It was kind of hard at first after the initial, joy of that opening scene, getting to see Andor back in action, having to remember all the moving parts, the allegiances, the political machinations, everything of that nature. I felt like I was playing catch up a little bit, and that's kind of the bummer with so many of these streaming shows now, where they take such long hiatuses. You really get out of the flow of the story. I would recommend rewatching the first season before watching this, or you might be like me, feeling a little lost. But to its benefit, I think it understood that, and I will say, I'll do a brief recap and some minor spoilers a little later in the video, but for now I'm just going to cover kind of my brief thoughts and overview of the first 3 episodes. The pacing here is very deliberate. I could see people complaining that it's maybe too slow of a start. I mean, there's some action sparsed in between with a couple of storylines wasn't the biggest fan of, but all in all, you're in good hands watching this show. It's the best looking Star Wars show it looks better than the actual movies in some cases. And a lot of that has to do with, I'm presuming it's Tony Gilroy, the insistence on using sets. And it's very early seasons Game of Thrones in that way, obviously with the flair of Star Wars. But, there's basically 3, maybe 4 converging separate storylines that I'm sure will in some way converge later on in the season. And we're kind of jumping back and forth between these 4. You have Andor doing his thing. You have Bix and Brazos on some type of farming planet. You have Dedra, the blonde Imperial lady, kind of seeing where her storyline's going to go this year. And there's an interesting development there that I thought was quite funny in the later episode, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And then you have Mon Mothma and this kind of whole wedding thing going on all over the course of 3 episodes. So it's very much table setting. It's very much getting that chessboard back, putting all the pieces where they need to be. And I can tell you with confidence that as someone who hasn't seen anything past 3, I'm watching it just like everyone else. This is going to be an awesome season, and you can tell that the action and the excitement is going to be there. And it's gotten a lot of critical acclaim. For these first 3 episodes, I would say some people might be disappointed if you're just looking for it to get right back into that kinetic and frenetic pacing it had, in the later episodes of season 1. It's very much reintroducing you to all the alliances, all the characters, and setting the table for much greater things to come. So score-wise, I'd say it's around a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10, but that is with the caveat of what we're watching is the best Star Wars potentially ever made. I'm sure Empire Strikes Back is considered a masterpiece by many. Very good to me, but this is what we need, is adult, mature storytelling, just using the Star Wars world. And there's so much that could be explored within these worlds that Disney just hasn't done. It's been too much falling back on legacy characters. And what I love about this show is you're getting it reminds me of these first 3 episodes and some of these storylines of like King's Landing, Game of Thrones, like season 2, where there's so much said below the surface, right? You have so many characters talking. You got to really pay attention here, because it's all iceberg principle, right? They're giving you words, but there's so much subtext layered into Gilroy's writing. And the threats that are conveyed, the alliances that are threatened and formed, there's some fascinating stuff here. And I really think what Gilroy is able to accomplish is just making mature Star Wars for adults. This is not a kid's show. I wouldn't let your kids watch it. They'll probably either be bored or horrified in some sequences, but that's the good for me. Now, I just started doing this. I'm not an editing wizard. I'm working on it, so I don't have any flashy title card to say spoilers, but this is spoilers. So, you've been warned. I'll get into a little of some of the things I didn't like and some of the things I did. I thought Andor had the weakest storyline until the 3rd episode. For the first 2 episodes, he's like marooned with this, I don't know, like subsection of the rebellion out on this like jungle planet. And I really hated them. They were so annoying, just bickering and fighting. You could kind of see where it's going there, and it does. And he kind of gets caught in the middle between this power grab that's going on when one of their leaders goes missing. And I really just couldn't wait for him to get out of it. I was not liking it at all. And that would definitely be the weakest point of the 3 episodes for me. And thankfully, he's out of that by the end of episode 2. And episode 3 has a much better return to form as far as his character goes. The Bix and Brasso storylines, they're on a farm planet, posing as like crop harvesters. The Empire comes to do a inventory audit, and a lot of chaos ensues. There's good tension there, and there's a really dark plot line that I could see being pretty controversial. I don't know how like classic Star Wars fans are gonna feel about it. I just don't. I mean, it seems so out of place for the Star Wars universe. Regarding Bix, there's like I don't know what you can say on YouTube, but a guy, an Imperial like captain, is trying to force himself on her, and she even says the R word. I mean, as far as what Gilroy is trying to accomplish, I get it. You're trying to set the tone that we're covering some dark material here. I have a feeling like this season is going to have some serious deaths in it and some big emotions. But just personally, what I have stuff about the R word, forcing yourself on someone in a Star Wars show, probably not. But Tony Gilroy is a lot smarter and a lot better of a writer than I am, so I'll trust him there. But I do see that being a controversial plot point. Don't necessarily think you needed it to like hate this guy. He's with the Empire. He's got that snarling British BS, And, he just had a punchable face. I don't know if he had to go that direction, but it is what it is. And some people probably think it was bold and audacious and brave and compelling, and some people will probably think it was unnecessary. So as far as how I feel, a little unnecessary, but it was a really powerful scene, and it was a really tense scene, and you were really scared for Bix. And that's what I really like about this show, is there's an obvious flaw here where the title character, we've seen him in Rogue One. We know his story ends there. There's really not much tension in scenes of like, you're just wondering how is he going to get out of it, right? Versus like, is he going to get out of it? So what they've done is they've fleshed out all these allies for him. But no, they've fleshed out all these allies for him, and they've made them really likable. They've made them three-dimensional, well-rounded characters, and you just don't know if they're going to make it. And that's where the show gets most of its tension from. And I think it's a really brilliant idea. It's something that a writer like Gilroy would be able to figure out. And, there's not many times where they're baiting you like, oh, Andor's about to die. Because it's like, no, he's not. We know he's not. But you have other characters who you really like, and I've really grown to like from the first season. We lose one of them in the third episode at the very end. And that was very sad to me. I really liked that character. He's a very wholesome guy. And the other plot development I thought was kind of funny was the detective guy from season 1 in The Empire. I think his name is Cyril. He shows up in episode 2, which was nice to see. I wasn't sure if he was going to be in it because they just kind of, the way his storyline wrapped up, it didn't really, that was maybe my biggest flaw with season 1 is they put so much investment and emphasis on him, and it just kind of fizzled out at the end. I wasn't really sure how they're going to do that, but the connection of him showing up, and you see Dedra, the Imperial officer, who she seems to have one of the more interesting storylines this year. You have Krennic, played by the wonderful and brilliant Ben Mendelsohn, just a fantastic actor. He's back in episode 1, and she's going to be kind of in charge of what the Empire, they're trying to mine this planet called Gorma, which I can only assume is for a Death Star. And it seems like she's going to be tasked with leading that charge. But when you introduce to Cyril, he goes home to his apartment, and it's him and Dedra. I chuckled a little bit because I think that's such a wonderful kind of mismatched pairing. They're both so, I don't know, awkward, but it seems like it'll kind of work in a way. I don't know how much of it is actual affection and how much of it is like, political maneuvering and social ladder climbing. But there's a really good scene with Cyril's just terrible mother's one of the most wretched characters on TV in the last few years. She shows up for the most like awkward meet the mom dinner, and I really enjoyed that scene. And the third episode definitely, to me, was the best. There's quite a bit of action and development towards the end of it. And then as far as Mon Mothma's storyline goes, and there's some fantastic set design, costume design for this whole wedding sequence with her daughter that she made last year on some kind of political thing. I don't quite remember it all. But Tay, the gentleman who's kind of helping fund the alliance, he's pulling some King's Landing politics. He's speaking to her, kind of alluding at like he needs to get some of his investment recuperated or he's going to go tattletale. So the closing scene of her dancing to like EDM club music, which I also found to be a little off-putting to hear in Star Wars, but it kind of worked for me. I could see a lot of people not liking it, but her kind of dancing her stress away as she realizes what they're going to have to do to Tay for these threats, I found to be a nice touch. And overall, again, 7.5 out of 10, but I think there's going to be much better stuff to come. I'm excited. I'll be reviewing these weekly as they drop. I do have a job, so I won't probably be able to always do it right away immediately. But if you're liking this review, you want to give me a like, you want to subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I'll also be dropping a review for The Accountant 2 sometime this weekend. I'll also be doing weekly recaps of The Last of Us as a fan of the game. I don't know if it's going to be loving to watch or hating to watch, but I'll be doing recaps of those as well. And there's plenty of good movies coming up. So as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. If whoever does. You know, it's a new channel, so if you've sat through this whole video and listened to me ramble, I really appreciate you. It's very kind. And thanks for watching me having to wrestle with my dog, Hamilton. And with that being said, that's a wrap for this review. Tune in next time to Margo Watches Movies. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.